From the James F. Goodman Studio in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, connecting campus and community, this is Carolina Week.
Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Carolina Week. I'm Andrea Lutka.
And I'm Claudia Rubsich. We'll take a look back at some of the top stories of the fall semester here at Carolina. At the height of the semester's NCAA investigation, students, faculty, and alumni had a lot of questions and a few answers. We sat down with one campus icon who has a vested interest in the future of athletics program, and he had his fair share of concerns. Eddie Sykes reports.
Like a sack in the backfield, the university community has been more or less blindsided by the ongoing NCAA investigations that have kept several UNC stars off the field. But whether you anticipated the blow or not, former UNC system president and campus icon William Friday says the issue goes much deeper than just a few suspended athletes.
College sports really are out of control. What happened in the late 90s was that the invasion of television money upset the whole balance of what we were trying to do.
Friday says similar problems still exist today, and he wants to put an end to them.
What I'm talking about is the commercial exploitation of the institution, where you're manipulated by the networks, you're told when to play, you're told how many games you can play in a given day. All these things that are in and around that kind of power, all based on money, is when the institution itself loses its sense of control.
It's that sense of control that people like athletics director Dick Bedore are trying desperately to regain.
It is my responsibility to bring all of these issues to a close, and I assure you that the university staff is working tirelessly to make that happen.
Friday can rejoice in knowing that administrators and coaches are committed to getting back on track.
It's not something that we're going to be able to snap our fingers and overnight obviously change the perception that has transpired over the last couple of weeks, but I give you my word and I promise you as the head football coach, we're going to work every day to restore that confidence.
Friday is still very much a part of the ongoing conversation about intercollegiate athletics. In 1989, he was one of the founding members of the Knight Commission, a group dedicated to reforming college sports programs and recruiting. But there's one thing Friday says is more important than any team, game, or score.
And that is the integrity of the university itself. And whatever impinges upon that, whatever's disruptive of that, that has to be changed. That has to be corrected.
Only time will tell what changes, if any, take effect. In Chapel Hill, I'm Eddie Sykes. Carolina Week.
We now know the fates of all the athletes involved in the investigation, but the healing process for UNC's reputation is only just beginning.
It's something students, faculty, and UNC officials have weighing on their minds: proposed budget cuts for the UNC system. Reporter Jennifer Kessinger tells us what kinds of cuts UNC is looking at and how they could affect students.
The Board of Governors approved a $2.7 billion budget for the 2011 school year and sent the proposal to the General Assembly last week. But the state's $3 billion deficit is likely to mean more cuts for the UNC system's 17 schools. Vice President for Finance Ernie Murphy says the proposed cuts will be tougher to cope with than previous cuts.
I think we've trimmed the fat already pretty much over the last several years of budget cuts, and so this is more a bone, but it's going to mean some restructuring of things.
Student body president Hogan Medlin says the cuts come as a shock because of the state's historically high appropriations to system schools. But he also said he and other students won't remain silent if the legislature decides to make big cuts to the budget.
Or delivering a message, telling our state legislators that, hey, you cut us this much more, you're hurting our ability to provide financial aid to students who really need it, or you're increasing the size of my class.
Administrators are looking at two possible scenarios: a 5% cut, roughly $135 million, or a 10% cut, about $270 million, system-wide. There are more than 200,000 full-time students enrolled in the UNC system. And as UNC braces for budget cuts, students are wondering just how those cuts will affect their education. With these cuts, Murphy says students could see tuition hikes, increases in class sizes, and fewer course offerings. Medlin says students are concerned about seeing a decrease in the quality of academics at UNC.
And we don't want to see programs go from our university because that's really lowering the quality of our education.
And no one wants the system's academic standards to slip. The General Assembly will begin budget discussions in January. In Chapel Hill, I'm Jennifer Kessinger, Carolina Week.
The General Assembly will begin budget discussions starting in January. Two numbers that are very important in the tuition debate are 82 and 18. There's a cap on out-of-state admissions, meaning UNC is prohibited from allowing more than 18% of any incoming class to be out-of-state students, even though those students pay significantly more tuition than in-state students do. Joelle Kaplan has that story.
Student Body President Hogan Medlin doesn't have to worry about the out-of-state admission cap because he's from North Carolina. But even he's unsure where the limit came from in the first place.
It seems somewhat arbitrary, but at the same time, I'm sure someone knew what they were doing when they instigated it. Again, this is a long time policy of the university. It's not something that's new.
Out-of-state admission was first capped at 15% in 1946 for the UNC system. After 4 decades of this loosely enforced limit, former system president William Friday was the one who proposed the strict 18% cap in 1985. That cap still applies today, and Senior Associate Director of Admissions Barbara Polk says it's not the only factor making it harder for out-of-staters to get in.
We've had more out-of-state applicants than we've had in-state applicants. So because of the way the numbers work, it is easier, if you will, for North Carolinians to be admitted.
But the issue for UNC now goes beyond competitiveness and diversity. The university has a $54 million hole in its budget. Because an out-of-state student pays almost 5 times the tuition of a North Carolinian, many are suggesting that the university raise the non-resident admission cap. Consider the University of Virginia, widely viewed as the school most comparable to UNC. UVA doesn't limit admission for non-residents, and the in-state to out-of-state ratio is currently 72 to 28. If this ratio applied to Carolina students, the university would be making almost $35 million more in tuition each year. By comparison, the recently approved 6.5% tuition increase is expected to increase revenue by only about $15 million. Medlin knows more non-residents mean more money, but he doesn't foresee a change in the policy.
I don't see this as something that they would partake to, mostly because I think there is that sense of pride, I think, and the number of North Carolinians attending this university.
In Chapel Hill, I'm Joelle Kaplan, Carolina Week.
Other large university systems actually have a lower ratio of out-of-state students than we do. The cap in California is 10%.
It's pretty common for college students to work out regularly, trying to look fit and attractive, but the scale isn't always kind, even for those workoutaholics. There are other ways to determine if your weight is where it should be, though. I followed a UNC student through a series of measurements, some more accurate than others. Take a look.
Kirsti Casanare has been an athlete almost all her life. At UNC, she plays intramural soccer and works out at least 3 times a week. But according to her body mass index, she's overweight.
It hurts. I mean, I obviously have all this pressure from the media and whatnot already, and they're telling me I'm fat, and now science is telling me I'm fat, so.
BMI calculations are based solely on height and weight and don't take muscle mass into account. So for a 5-foot, 130-pound person like Castanera, BMI isn't an accurate measurement of fitness. Bioelectrical impedance, or BIA analysis, uses a device that measures your body fat by sending a small electric current through the body. According to this test, Castanera has 25.1% body fat, placing her in the recommended category. One of the most accurate methods used to measure body composition is the Skinful Test. The person administering the test uses calipers to pinch 3 different areas of the body. In women, they're the back of the arm, the side of the stomach, and the thigh. The computer takes an average of the 3 numbers to come up with the percent of body fat. This test showed Castanera with 28.7% body fat, still within the recommended category. Lauren Mangili is the director of the fitness program at UNC. She says the BMI numbers are scary for people like Castanera. She says although other measures are more accurate, people shouldn't get hung up on the numbers.
You have to have fat on your body, and women have more fat than men. It's just a fact of nature. So the number shouldn't really be the main focus.
Instead, she says to focus on how you feel, how your clothes fit, and the amount of energy you have. You should take body fat percentage into account, but it's definitely not the only factor in determining how fit you are.
More of the top stories of the fall semester when we return
on this special edition of Carolina Week.
Treat your family to Van Gogurt, packed with live and active culture to boost kids' math and reading skills.
It's sure to satisfy your hunger for inspiration.
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit americansforthearts.org.
Congratulations. I'm sure you'll have many happy years here. Except for you, because you'll be gone 3 years from now, struck down by the same disease that got your father. Sadly, it could have been detected early with a simple test.
For a list of tests every man should have, go to ahrq.gov.
A local group that helps homeless people also helps people struggling in other ways, such as a woman who, as a refugee, found herself with no sense of belonging in a new, strange country. Alexandra Press has her inspiring story.
Ramita Chicaza is a refugee from Albania, a communist country that has eliminated many freedoms, including religion.
Our parents baptized my brother and I while we were sleeping, in fear of if we went to school, we would tell our teacher and then they would go to prison.
So in 1991, at 12 years old, Chicaza and her family boarded a ship to Italy. Many others had the same idea.
There were like several thousands of people on that ship, and there was absolutely no room to move. And at one point, we didn't even know if we were actually going to sink or not because of all the weight that was on it.
They landed in Brindisi and stayed there for a year. Then they found political asylum in the States. Constant travel has created a sense of emotional homelessness.
You feel like you're completely vulnerable when you have nothing. I mean, we left with not a picture, with nothing. Personally, I've been stuck between two cultures, so how do I go forward? Who am I? Like, am I Albanian or am I American?
The Carborough and Chapel Hill communities have helped Chicaza to discover where she belongs and who she is.
It's like, it's like the layers of homelessness, are coming off. It's like, and your friends and your and the people that you deal with on a daily basis. It's like those are the new clothes of home.
And in rebuilding a sense of belonging, she has turned to the arts. Design, paint, and poetry.
I think arts are like comfort food. When you're sad or when you're going through some stuff, you try to eat cookies or chips or drink a beer or whatever that helps you get through that moment. And for me, art is the same way.
Chicaza has taken her artistic tendencies a step further by sharing her story in a production sponsored by Hidden Voices, a local nonprofit seeking to empower underrepresented populations. That's helping her discover who she is. In Chapel Hill, I'm Alexandra Press, Carolina Week.
Hidden Voices hopes to continue connecting communities through storytelling.
Women insured by the UNC system and other healthcare providers could be getting an early holiday gift, free birth control. Reporter Kirsti Casanare has a story about a new healthcare bill that could provide cheaper options for women's health.
Whether it's the pill, the patch, or the ring, it's all birth control, and soon it could be all free. Lee Josephson is a UNC senior and co-chair for Voices for Planned Parenthood. The bill also provides insured women with reduced prices for birth control, but the expense every month can still be a burden, especially for students.
I do have a lot of friends who don't buy birth control every month because it can be very expensive.
Josephson said the health care reform bill would also help the economy.
You're saving a lot of money if you're providing women a way to prevent pregnancy, and then you're also preventing all of the costs.
UNC campus health counselor Meredith Conrad said because of the high prices of birth control, some patients choose products they can't afford, not what works best.
Oftentimes they'll have to pick a method that maybe isn't their first choice and doesn't fit as perfectly into their life.
Studies have shown that 98% of women use birth control, 55% report struggling to pay for it, and 71% of Americans think it should be free. Allison Kaiser is a field manager for Planned Parenthood of Central North Carolina.
It turns out that 1 in 3 women nationwide have struggled to pay for her birth control at some point.
Josephson also said there hasn't been much opposition to this potential amendment.
We can find really a common ground, maybe not for the very, very religious who are completely against contraception in general. I think people can really see the value in making birth control really easily available and inexpensive.
In Chapel Hill, I'm Kirsti Casanare, Carolina Week.
The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services expects to reach a decision about free contraceptives by August 2011.
Many people deal with the pain and grief of a loved one's suicide every day. Reporter Alexandra Press brings us personal stories of those who strive to bring this sometimes taboo issue to the surface and create a supportive community on campus and beyond.
I just never even thought it would happen to us and to my family, and that day is just like burned into my brain, the day that I found out. American Foundation for Suicide Prevention I've been involved with since the beginning, since I lost my mom. A lot of suicides don't have to happen, especially among youth that just feel like they don't have any help. But that's why we're here to promote suicide prevention, especially on college campuses.
I personally have one loss from suicide, I'm very motivated to support this cause, and I think that suicide is something that not a lot of people are willing to talk about.
The best thing, and this is what we're doing right now today, is to get all this out in the open, not feel any shame about it, not apologize, just simply recognize this as a reality.
My son and brother-in-law's lives were lost, along with many hopes and dreams of us, their family and friends.
And us being here today proves that we all want to do something. We're not just here for this one event. I think it's because you want to do something more.
I want to do anything possible to prevent other people from going through that experience. And so I started something called the Triangle Consortium for Suicide Prevention.
I think a lot of times people who have these thoughts think that no one will miss them. And, like in the case with my mom, that's obviously not true. We all miss her and we all love her.
If you or someone you know needs some help, there's a link to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline on our website, carolinaweek.org.
For the UNC Marching Band, road trips can be a fun time to see new cities or a stressful time to catch up on schoolwork. Reporter Alicia Moore took a trip with the band to see what it's really like to hit the road.
It's 11 a.m. right now, and members of the UNC Marching Band are loading up the bus to head to Charlottesville for the UNC versus UVA football game. The game doesn't start till 6 p.m., but their day starts now. 45 band members packed onto the bus for the 3.5-hour ride with the cheerleaders. Some studied, some relaxed, and some played pranks. A big part of traveling with the band is making sacrifices. Sophomore clarinet player and theater major Alex Bradshaw told me she doesn't mind making those sacrifices.
My major is theater arts, and one of the things I'm going to have to choose pretty soon is doing plays and doing band, and I'm not giving up band.
Once we arrived in Charlottesville, the band had no time to waste before getting right down to business. It's currently 4 p.m., and after members of the band unloaded the bus, stretched, and warmed up, they are now performing for members of the Rams Club to get them excited about tonight's game. After the pep rally, the band had a little less than an hour to prepare for game time. Senior Sebastian Sardegna says over the past 3 years he has learned to balance the pros and cons of traveling on the road.
During the week when we have practice, it's actually a good thing because when you're busier, you have to do your work when you have the time to do it.
During the game, the band played, the fans cheered, and the football team won for the first time in Charlottesville since 1981. It's currently 9:45 p.m., and after cheering the UNC football team to victory, the UNC Marching Tar Heels are headed back to Chapel Hill. They have a 3.5-hour ride ahead of them. For me, this was a long day, but from their perspective, it's just another day on the road. In Charlottesville, I'm Alicia Moore, Carolina Week.
Band members participate in road trips on a voluntary basis, but members say they rarely have an occasion when only a few people want to travel.
Sportscaster Justin Page joins us here in the studio.
Justin, it's been an eventful semester for sports.
Claudia, that might be a little bit of an understatement. Obviously, the NCAA investigations into the football team, the headlining story of fall 2010. But coming up after the break, we'll break down the football season's conclusion to their season.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
There's a monster on the couch.
Even innocent things can trigger an asthma attack. Learn more at noattacks.org.
Please make the monsters go away.
Movement
Along with weight loss, it's one of the many ways to fight osteoarthritis pain. For more information on managing pain, go to fightarthritispain.org.
Welcome back to Carolina Week. Carolina sports have been wrapped up in controversy this semester. The NCAA investigations into the football team have even caused some to reconsider the role of college athletics. And although the debate centers on academic misconduct and contact with agents, one issue might pose an even bigger threat to the university.
Jarrett Rodriguez is a member of the UNC fencing team and, like many athletes, enjoys benefits not available to the average student.
Really appreciate the support from the university, whether it be at the Carolina Leadership Academy, through prior to registration. They really have taken the time to make our student athletes able to succeed both on the field and off it.
Those benefits are one of the many costs of operating UNC's 28 varsity teams. But despite those teams bringing in more than $67 million last year, UNC's athletics program struggled to break even, reporting only a $238,000 profit. That small surplus reflects the program's enormous costs, a common problem for colleges and universities across the country.
College sports really are out of control.
Former UNC system president William Friday is the founding co-chair of the Knight Commission, a group dedicated to reforming college athletics. Friday says the potential revenues of big-time college sports have caused universities to spend millions of dollars on new facilities and coaches' salaries, creating a system Friday believes is unsustainable.
I don't think some college administrators have really exercised control over their athletic departments. They just let them run.
And universities continue to run up deficits. An NCAA report shows that out of the 120 programs that participate in the Football Bowl subdivision, only 14 reported positive revenues in 2009. And in the face of the economy and UNC's own $85 million investment into Kenan Stadium's Blue Zone, those figures are making some on campus uneasy. Deficits have even caused some schools to shut down non-revenue programs. And although Rodriguez says that's unlikely at UNC, he knows that cuts are possible if the athletics program sinks into the red.
If it were to come down to it, I'd willfully acknowledge that fencing would probably be one of the first to go.
And once a program gets cut, there's almost no precedent for a university bringing it back.
Now, we do want to stress that here at Carolina, we're not in danger of losing any of our teams. However, all universities will need to keep a better eye on the bottom line moving forward. The UNC football team has been through a lot this season, but in spite of injuries, suspensions, and investigations, the Heels are headed to the postseason. Reporter Andy Reeves takes a look back at a season filled with turmoil.
When UNC coaches announced before the start of the season they were holding out 16 football players indefinitely, fans immediately lowered their expectations. But it turns out they didn't have to. New players were thrust into the action every week, but a group of veterans, underclassmen, and even some walk-ons were able to form a competitive team that was in the mix for a Coastal Division title.
We've had to rely on so many kids throughout the course of this season that we had no idea how they would play, how they would respond.
Well enough to qualify for a bowl game for the third straight year, and with a win in the Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl, the Heels would finish with the same 8-5 record they've had each of the past 2 seasons. Davis says this team has taught him to have more faith in his entire roster.
I probably have learned to respect more guys on the team, that if they just get a chance, they can contribute.
Players were forced to step up in the wake of NCAA investigations. Cornerback Kendrick Burney says his teammates relish the opportunity to play for each other.
Now, what people don't realize about this football team is we break it down on brotherhood every time. This team came together with all that NCAA stuff. That only got us closer.
These Tar Heels are also close to what would be a storybook ending. Quarterback TJ Yates says that after what this team has been through, he likes the Heels' chances.
I'd challenge any other team in the country to go through what we did and come out like we did. So I'm very proud of that.
But they're not done yet. If the Heels do overcome all the setbacks to finish the season with a victory, it would be a story worthy of Hollywood recognition. Forget the Titans, remember the Tar Heels. In Chapel Hill, I'm Andy Reeves, Carolina Week.
Now the Heels will lose several seniors in May, most notably TJ Yates, Bruce Carter, and Deontay Williams. However, Carolina coaches are excited about their young players and will look forward to kicking off spring practice come March. So we certainly wish the team the best of luck moving forward.
Definitely, and I look forward to looking at that team and making sure that they're great.
All right, guys, I think we're all hoping for a great spring semester. Thanks, Justin.
We'll take a look at some of the stories that made us smile
when we return to this special edition of Carolina Week.
If you have a story idea, call Carolina Week at 919-843-8292 or email us at carolinaweek@unc.edu. If you have questions about this program, write Carolina Week at Campus Box 3365, UNC-CH, Chapel Hill, North Carolina 27599. Be sure to check out Carolina Week and Carolina Connection online at carolinaweek.org.
When you were younger, your parents probably told you to put on your shoes before running outside.
But our colleagues at reesnews.org tell us some UNC students are ditching that advice and won't let anything come between their feet and the ground.
Feet are full of nerve endings. You have 200,000 nerve endings in each one of your feet. It's like your hands. And so if you go through life wearing shoes the whole time, it's like wearing thick woolen mittens and trying to go through life that way. You get a lot of sensation. It's just very, very pleasurable to sort of feel the world around you through your feet.
Well, I've been running since high school, and now kind of, I've been just, through college, just, 5 miles a day, every day, same trail. And, kind of, when you're not really training for anything in particular, just trying to stay in shape and, be healthy, it gets a little repetitive after a while. And barefoot running kind of reinvigorated that just that exercise for me. It made running kind of fun again, and not take as much time to get the same kind of endorphin release out of it.
Make mistake, you are more vulnerable when you run barefoot, absolutely. But because you're vulnerable, you're present. You pay attention to what you're doing. It's not just like, oh, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna go on the treadmill and turn on the music and just sort of zone out for a while the treadmill kind of does the work of pumping my legs for me. You have to be aware of where you're stepping, where you're going, and so it's much more mindful.
I do get a lot of funny looks from people. I usually run on UNC's campus. And I'll have people, come to me later on that I know. It's like, hey, I think I saw you running barefoot earlier. It's like, yeah, and I usually just, explain to them why I'm running barefoot. And some people think it's kind of weird. Kind of crazy, but some people are really, interested in it and think it's kind of a cool idea.
Some of those barefoot runners might work up an appetite after exercising, an appetite for something very flavorful.
Claudia, have you ever really wondered where the flavors for your morning frappuccino or favorite jelly beans come from?
I have. Reporter Rachel Nash gives us an inside look at a flavor factory that makes taste that travels around the world.
Inside these laboratories, flavor chemists create everything from ice cream treats to pharmaceutical flavors. And Mother Murphy's is proud to say it has more than 5,000 flavors on tap. Patricia Hutchinson is in charge of flavor development. She says it's the perfect career.
The fact that I create different flavors every day, and that whatever I create I see on the grocery store shelf.
To become a flavor chemist, Hutchinson went through a 7-year training process. But contrary to what you'd think, the key to inventing flavors doesn't start with the tongue. It's all about the nose.
We train people to smell and make the flavors by smell, and then to put them in a medium so they can taste it.
So before I headed out into the plant, I decided to see what Mother Murphy's was made of and try the newest ice cream creation.
It's good.
In the plant, this is where the workers package and process flavors to be shipped out around the world. But Hutchinson says she doesn't get a big head from the company's achievement. She says it's all about the sweet working environment.
We just help each other and work with each other as a team, and it's really a team effort on everything we do. It's just a fun atmosphere and creating things, and then we get to taste them.
It's easy to taste success. In Greensboro, I'm Rachel Nash, Carolina Week.
Claudia, it looks like there's some delicious flavors in there I'd just love to try.
Me too, but those ice creams look really good.
Well, that does it for this special edition of Carolina Week.
Thank you so much for watching and have a great night.